And that's all, folks.
Welcome to Psyched by MG. This is Mary Grace Randazzo-Ratliff, or MG for short. I've been a psychotherapist in private practice for 32 years now. Guess what, everyone? We all have issues. So it's time to lighten up and move forward. Let's stop letting our crap control us and take control of our crap.
Hey, that's a catchy tune.
Hello, everybody.
Good Friday evening, everyone.
Oh, it's going to be such a great Friday. But we've got, of course, Matthew Burrito with us and David Wright, Matt Fox. Jamie is somewhere, and I'm so excited about this. Jed, I'm so excited. We have Jed Diamond here, who has authored 17 books, Jed?
That's right.
17 books. We can't count all the articles. There's just no way, I don't think. Who has been on The View and CNN 360, The Today Show, I mean, countless shows. He's an expert with men's issues, but not just men's issues. I mean, one of your books is The Enlightened Marriage. And he's written, irritable male, male menopause, or irritable male syndrome, 12 rules for good men. Those are just some of your amazing books. And so we are so honored to have you with us today. And we're going to dive into some things, especially with, COVID-19 and how it is affecting men, all of the stress that it is producing for everybody. But men are really getting hit by this. But before we do that, let's just kind of do a check-in with everybody. How is everyone doing? David, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It seems like I said, days blend together nowadays, but yeah, I mean, again, I feel like I'm lucky because I still get to do what I do. I still see clients every day. Granted, it's different because we're doing it online, but
yeah.
We're still able to help people, and again, they need it now more than ever. I work with a lot, and I know we've talked in prior podcasts, Mary Grace, but I work with a lot of the frontline people. I work with a lot of nurses, teachers, and then really, honestly, a lot of parents who are just trying to manage their kids at home while they're trying to work. So it feels good. Again, I feel lucky. A lot of people are out of work, but I get to do what I do every day. So that's a good thing.
Yes. It does all blend together. It's really strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm making myself go outside more. I was getting a little lazy and not doing the walks and doing that stuff. So I'm definitely getting better. How you doing, Matthew Burrito?
I'm doing good. I agree with David and you, and a bit of an eerie feeling, like a little bit of Groundhog's Day, a little bit of repetition, and still, and being one of someone who is on the front lines and working with individuals, providing services and trying to not only stay safe for myself, my family, obviously in the community, but also providing services to people in the population that I serve. So all in all, I think it's nice to have these things too, to kind of come together, and I look forward to these things because I think what I've noticed is a deeper, intimate connection between myself and my friends, my family, my partner, my work relationships especially. I think there's a deeper appreciation for the work that we're all doing. So I think that's something that also is kind of a meritorious type of reaction that I've been, and most recently in the past few days actually, have gifted myself the ability to get to that point. And it's
I know
it's taken me a couple days.
Right, that's right. And Jed, it's kind of a good check-in today because you and I have had many conversations, but to really check in with men and to see how they're doing and how this is affecting them. How many cases of COVID do we have now? Did we hit 2 million or no?
Oh yeah, we've
Oh, we did.
way by worldwide we're closer to 4 million.
Yeah.
I think we're last
my
I looked
God.
something like 275,000 deaths worldwide.
My
U.S.
God.
is seriously a large proportion of those. And I know for me, I'm kind of similar to you all in that I see clients every day now in a little different way. I'm kind of on the front lines in the same way that you all are, and the front lines are getting more crowded, more people are in need, more people are hurting, more people are terrified. And I mean, I'll be honest, personally, I go in and out. There are times when I feel just kind of, well, what day is this? It's just ho hum, same old, same old. Other days, it's like, my God, I'm going to die. Everything's coming apart. The sky's falling. It just feels like we're overwhelmed. It's crazy time. And at other times I say, geez, there's some positive things happening. There's some potential for, change. And I know for me, I could summarize the work that I've been doing over the last really 50 years as really helping people with four main areas or questions that I think we have to answer, men and their families. The first being, am I living a fully authentic life? The only life we could live is our own. And there's, with all the pulls and pushes on us, the first thing is, am I really doing my life? And the second one I help people with is, am I loving deeply and well? And I include, am I loving myself? Am I loving my wife, in my case, my family? I've got, married for the last, as I said, 40 years. I've got, between Carlin and I, we have 5 children and 17 grandchildren. And the third thing, which is really interesting because it touches on where we are now, I say, am I engaging the issues of my particular time? Humans have been around for a long time. There are, in each lifetime, there's significant issues, significant challenges. And am I really engaging them is the third question I help people address. And the fourth one is, am I making a positive difference in the world? Is my presence doing something that I feel proud of, that I can leave some little bit of legacy? And I think the COVID-19 is a world transforming event that really, for the first time in human history, we're all involved with it in a way that no other issue has touched the world, I think, in the same way. And we have the communication to be able to be having the world in our living room every night. We know how many deaths in the world. We can go on, various websites to see granularly what's happening in any city in the world, in any county in the world, practically. So it's the first time, in a sense, that we all are in the same social movement together, and how we then navigate that, is why we're here. We're trying to sort that out individually. We're trying to sort that out as a group, as families, our clients, and our whole country. And I think men particularly, there are men and women, I think, deal with these issues in different ways, but I think men have both unique challenges, unique stresses, and unique ways that will come through this. So I think there's a lot going on here, clearly.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what you were telling me the last time we talked about, that there is such a difference statistically in regards to men getting COVID-19 versus women, and that it's hitting men harder. And there's, the death rate is higher with men than it is with women. That's correct?
Yeah, that seems to be the statistics from all over the world, that men may be more susceptible. And at least I see that in my community now, where you see men more than women not wearing any protective masks, even though it's in our community, it's required, in our state, it's required. but
Mhm.
you still see a lot of people that don't, and most of them are men. Most of them are young men. So it wouldn't surprise me that, men are more risk taking generally. Obviously, what I say about men or women are generalities, but generally,
Mhm.
men tend to take more risks. And
Yeah.
the statistics are very clear where they've kept them in terms of hospitalizations and deaths is that the death rate for males as a result of COVID virus is, up to twice the rates that we're seeing in women.
Ah, boy, that's a very good point about risk, because they are more risk takers than women are. And even my husband's pretty good. Like he puts that mask on, and he, I got him trained really well. You take the bleach wipe with you, take the Lysol with you. Before you get in the house, you have to spray everything down or wipe it down with bleach. So maybe he takes direction really, really well. Now that I think about
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
I'm constantly, saying, "Oh my gosh, now what did you touch?" or wash your hands immediately, strip down in the garage. I tell him that a lot when he's coming back from the store. Okay, strip down in the garage, put everything in the laundry, go take a shower.
So
Oh,
Jed, based on that information, and again, maybe men are more risk takers. Do you think there are the other traits that cause men to kind of I don't want to say downplay, but
minimize,
maybe minimize or take things less seriously, or think that might not
rationalize.
apply to them?
Yeah, I think there's both kind of evolutionary reasons and just psychological reasons that men generally tend, and I think it ties in with risk taking, that men have, throughout evolutionary history, been the ones that took more risks. I think it's part of our biological nature. It's why you see men both at the top. If you take more risks and you succeed, you're going to be more successful. You'll have more women partners, you'll have more children, but you also see more men at the bottom, which we don't often talk about, where if you take more risks, you end up dying, or you end up, losing your job, or you end up getting, aced out of a situation. So I think the way, that translates in this situation is that men seem to be less willing uh, to settle for safety, and in a sense, just biologically, and I do this when I do little workshops. I ask, it's a mixed workshop with women and men. If you were going to be able to get, $10 million, depending on how many sexual encounters you could have in the next 2 hours, most women, would be able to have as many sexual encounters as they wanted. Women are biologically attractive in that way. Men have to go out and, and vie for being chosen. So I think all of that translates into men are willing to be more risky, and as a result, I think are again ones that have more problems and are more at risk of, in this case, infection and sometimes death.
Mhm.
Hey, Jed, I do apologize, but some of the folks there, we have a Facebook watch party going on, and someone actually chimed in and said, it's really confusing that's going on right now. How it's confusing as to how serious or not the epidemic is right now, and the hoaxes that are out there via, the social medias. What do we believe in these days? They're fearful or they're paranoid,
Right.
at the same time. So what is your take on that?
Well, clearly we're in a world where there's a lot of confusion. Some of it's the confusion that we have a virus that's new, that's never been seen. So there's confusion just in the whole professional community. If you look at the best minds, the best scientists,
One and two
not
right here.
everybody
Three, yeah.
understands what's going on because it changes, and what we what we know changes all the time. So you have that to deal with. But beyond that, we live at a time where the information that is shared is questioned. We live in a time where it's hard to separate what's fact and what's belief. And then you hone it into the United States, and clearly we're in a culture where you have left and right and political parties that often will, I was just reading some statistics today saying that you can chart the degree to which people are taking the virus seriously and being willing to do the things the epidemiologists and scientists tell us need to be done if we're going to protect ourselves. You can separate out very easily by political party. That is, if you are a very strong Republican and you feel very much in support of the president, Donald Trump, then you're more likely to say, hey, this is a hoax, or we've got to get back to work. We got to get our economy going. If you tend to be on the other party, Democrat, you're more likely to, take the science more seriously. So I think what it gets down to, and I try to share this, I think MG knows this, I have, in addition to a counseling degree, I have a doctoral degree in international health. Yeah. And, we studied infectious diseases, pandemics. And so one of the things that I try to do on my website, and I've been writing articles about this, is to give people the factual information as best we know it, based on the best scientists that I know, the best researchers that I know, the best clinicians that I know, so that people can have something they can count on. So, I can tell them, all right, here's the best evidence. You still have to decide what you're going to do. Are you going to stay home? You're going to go out? Some people don't have the luxury of that choice. Some people are required to be out. Some people have to. If they don't, they're not going to eat. Their family's going to starve. But we need as good information as we can get. And I see it as part of my job to help get that information out so that at least people who follow me at least have some sense that they can trust what I have to say. Doesn't mean everything I say is accurate. If it's wrong, I'll come back and say, hey, I thought this was good, but it wasn't. I made a mistake. Or, the facts change. Science evolves, and what we knew just yesterday, last week, last month, we know more now, and we then have better information we can pass on to people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Matt, you'll notice Nancy Manzella, I actually know her from high school. She wrote something interesting when we were talking about men, and she said that men will struggle with wearing a mask because it's not manly. And I thought, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's not a manly thing to do. So some men are struggling with protecting themselves and taking care of themselves because it's not a part of what they believe is their masculinity.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
I think it's interesting too, Jed, what you're talking about in Mary Grace, and really all of us, is like that kind of paradigm of safety. And what does feeling safe actually feel like? And how do we identify that too? And I think the kind of connection between both, obviously, sexes and genders, but then also the kind of discontinuous nature of it. And that doesn't always have to mean something's wrong with that either. So I think that's also something that I find interesting. And I agree with you. And I just from my own personal experience, even at work, I find myself almost convincing men to wear masks, and maybe unconsciously it has something to do with that, right? It's not fashionable, and I always try to talk about it in the sense of our health. And when it's interesting when I reframe it, and I think that to me language is important. So when I use that word, and I'll even say that, let me reframe this a second. And so when I talk about that, about safety, and I talk about health, then it seems to shift a little bit, not always, but it shifts a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think you all of you have hit hit a really important point that I think part of the stereotypes and the way in which many of us grew up was that men were supposed to be strong. They're supposed to, not complain. They're supposed to go out and take risks. They're supposed to defend their family, go out there and fight the enemy kind of thing. And so the idea of, for instance, wearing a mask, one, it's, the bad guys wore masks, the good guys wore the white hats, so you have that to deal with. But the other is it's acknowledging that I am at risk. It's acknowledging that I'm vulnerable. And again, much of the conditioning, I call it the man box. And Mary Beth or Mary Grace mentioned the 12 Rules for Good Men, one of the books that I wrote. One of the rules is breaking free of the man box, which is the set of beliefs that many of us grew up with, and the women have a similar kind of thing of the reciprocal, what women are supposed to do. So part of it, the reframing that needs to happen is to have a belief that says, it's manly to take care of yourself. It was one of the things my wife really supported me in. She told me, it's manly when you go to the doctor and get your health checkup. And, as opposed to what many men will tell me around health is, one guy told me, I get my annual health checkup once every 10 years. Because that's what men do, right? I mean, you shouldn't need to do that. And even now in my own life, I realize like I'm at higher risk of, if I get the disease, I could more easily get real sick or die because I've had lung problems. So both my wife and I are very careful, but I realized I had to say, I even feel fearful about going to do the little shopping that we do and going into the stores. And she said, well, I want to do that. And I realized it was hard for me to let her take the lead in something like that. It was like, whoa, how can I be the one that stays home while you go out and take risks? That's just not the way men are supposed to be. And yet in the deeper way, and you point this out, that men taking care of themselves is the greatest gift we can give our women, our children, our grandchildren, our families. So it is a reframing and a re-understanding of what it means to be a man in today's world.
And the difference between being a male and being a man, and that a man does take good care of himself. His value is important and his care is important, and that he will make decisions that are not impulsive or reactionary. He'll make decisions that he'll take action and take care of himself as well as his family. As a man takes care of himself, then a good partner or a person in your life then doesn't have to get so scared and worried about that man because he isn't taking care of himself. It's a responsibility that in relationships is so key to bring that man forward versus that male that has those belief systems that are more adolescent. And so I think that's a good lead in to men with this pandemic, the emotional side of things and what they're going through, I think is key to identify. I think we're all going through some similar things, but I think for men, there's some that are more difficult and stressful.
Yeah.
One we just identified, I think it's dealing with fear and not defining being afraid within all of this change and transition and scares, that being afraid is very masculine. It's very much a part of being a man. It's how you cope with those fears that is so key to really bringing you together in connection in a relationship versus shutting down and then perpetuating other things and other symptoms. So to be able to deal with fear, and Dave and Matthew, you know, we talk about it all the time, you know, how do you know you're afraid? And then when you are afraid, what do you tend to do? Do you know what you look like when you are afraid? And then how do you handle it? And I think, Jed, I think it's somewhat safe to say, I think more men turn that fear into anger.
Yeah, I think that's true, is that one, we're not supposed to be afraid. That's the man box culture, that we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed, you know, part of being manly and being masculine is to charge into the, you know, enemy lines kind of thing. So as a result, we keep our fear covered, we keep our vulnerability covered, we keep our worry, our pain covered. And so in many ways, the only emotion that we have been allowed to share is anger. You know, we go out there and we're angry, I think, in this situation, not only because there's, you know, a threat out there that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't, you know, wrestle it to the ground, we can't punch it in the nose. And yet the feelings of, I have to protect my family, myself, my kids, my grandkids, my loved ones, my community. And so that frustration, I think, builds up. You add to that, we're being told by the health authorities, by the governor, by whoever, you must stay home. You must do this. And I think most people, to some degree, and men particularly, react when somebody tells us that we can't do something, particularly stay home, go to your room. And it'll either bring up feelings of a mother that told us that, and so we'll have particular anger towards women, or it'll be a remembrance of, you know, wait till your father gets home and you're going to get hit, or you're going to get punished, or you're going to get beaten. So I think there's an emotional reaction that, you know, either is suppressed anger that then comes out. I know in our community, the levels of domestic violence has gone up, the levels of child abuse has gone up, the levels of, you know, just suppressed anger, which gets turned into depression, turns in for some to suicides, of, you know, have gone up and will continue. And just that whole panoply of mental health issues that I think is probably the next pandemic that we're going to see as we get the physical things under control, and we at least get familiar enough to know what the dangers are, and you've seen enough people in the hospitals or on ventilators. But then you're going to start feeling the, you know, the terror that people have been living with, the suppressed fear, rage, unhappiness. And I think the way men expresses it, I say we often act it out. We act it out rather than being able to talk about the fear and the internal confusion and fear of consequence or fear of the future. So that's the thing I work a lot with guys, to how do you deal with that feeling? How do you identify it? How do you put a name to it? And then how do you express it in ways that are going to be, you know, helpful to you and your family and your community, rather than acting them out in obviously potentially violent ways.
Well, and we had a pretty good example of that, and it was more threatening than violent, Jeb. But I don't know if you saw, we had a protest at our Capitol in Michigan a couple of weeks ago with, you know, a bunch of guys with weapons and you know, I mean, that kind of aggression, that kind of threat, and again, I think to try to understand the thinking there, I think these are men that are afraid. They're scared and they don't want their freedom taken away. That's their fear.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way that they deal with fear is that I don't think they have a good awareness, but it's to become severely aggressive and controlling, and to the point where the impulsivity with that gets to be acting out, where they perpetuate more fear onto others instead of being effective and assertive in a way that really helps and makes change. That fear gets in there and turned into anger, turns into control, and then it becomes domination.
Right.
Well, and I think it's interesting too,
Doesn't work.
like when we're talking about, and Jed and all of us, I mean, especially when we're talking about science too, that's something that, as you mentioned earlier, providing something to someone, right? And kind of giving them these tools and in this sense, information. And if, you know, if it's, and sometimes if it's right then, and then we come back and we follow it up with some more things, hopefully that are right. And I think we were talking about just statistics, and like even the National Suicide Hotline statistically and nationally has increased over 1,000%. That was something that was just released a couple days ago. And I think, you know, a lot of times suppressing and kind of feeling like we're just, you know, what we're reminded of, as you were saying, Mary Grace, too, is like, well, what happens when we do feel like fear and we do feel afraid? And then where do we put that energy, right? And so, as we all know, when people either are on the phone with us or a session or in our office or just even in passing in the world around us, we often are providing a gift, and it's a privilege, and, you know, kind of to provide that gift of a safe holding place, right? And so when men, you know, especially what we're talking about, but, you know, women, children, but in general, when we don't have that safe space and we don't feel like we're being contained in a safe way, right, then sometimes it's like all bets are off. And, you know, I hear that a lot, even in, especially in the kind of carceral system, where it's like, well, I didn't mean to do that if I wasn't doing that, but I did that because I felt out of control, quote unquote, right? And so when I feel out of control, what do you do, right? And I think in addition to statistics, I try to also work with people too, and like provide yourself with your own internal statistics, right? Reminding yourself of like, how did you provide yourself that de-escalation? How did you provide yourself with, you know, getting to that space of feeling safe and remembering the science of your body and the science of your thinking?
Yeah.
Well, I'd add a couple of things to what you're saying that I think are important. When you talk about, and I've seen, you know, the same videos that you're describing up close of these men getting violent, you know, coming out with guns, coming out with, you know, let's get them. I think you got to understand, at least in my mind, where they're coming from. You know, within anybody, you know, that you're helping, you got to, in a sense, go, all right, let me get what it looks like through your eyes. You know, I do Aikido. It's a martial art. Part of the practice is, you know, being able to see the attack through their eyes. And I think a lot of the guys that are acting out that way are wanting to act, because the truth is, you know, there is a danger out there. You know, there is a threat out there. And biologically, what particularly men are have evolved to be able to do is to deal with a threat physically, because most of the threats through human history have been ones we could see and touch and feel. It was a wild animal coming into camp, or it was a raiding party of another tribe. And so we want to do something. We want to attack something. We want to, so rather than, you know, say or feel, well, we got to help them feel the fear. What I often will do is, let's start with, yeah, of course you're angry. You know, there's danger. You know, we need to do something, and then try to, and I do this, you know, with a lot of the men I work with, to say, all right, let's take that energy that you have and let's get it into action. Let's start doing something. Let's get physical. And at this time, there's some limits to what kind of physicality we can do. I know for me, I do a lot of physical stuff just to deal with that energy myself. I'm doing push-ups 2 or 3 times a day. I'm walking up hills. And what I try to do with guys that are in this situation is let's figure out how to engage them. Let's figure out what they can do. All right, you want to really do something to help this? Let's do this. Let's organize. Let's get out on the
Right.
street and if you give guys something that they can do and something that they can feel is positive and something that they feel is respectful of what's needed and feeling like, all right, here's what a man can do. Let's do this. Get him helping people, get him carrying, food for people. Let get him in, carrying water to people that need it, helping, and I've been amazed how these quote crazy people who, are demonstrating and yelling and screaming, when you kind of organize and help guide their action and support their desire. Yeah, I get it. You're mad. You need to do something. You need to protect. Let's figure out how to do that effectively. That I think could be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the underlying frustration, I think, and I understand the viewpoint because they feel like their freedoms are being taken. Again, they feel like they're protecting something. And we all know you can't have total freedom with security and you can't have total security with freedom. There's got to be a balance. And I think even just reframing that for them to say, it has to be somewhere in the middle because you can't have total freedom and total safety. It doesn't exist together.
Exactly. And trying to balance that, I mean, that's what everybody in the world is trying to do right now. The best way to stay totally safe from the virus is to just never go out and stay totally away from anybody. Don't hug your wife, don't hug your kids, don't be in. So, you'll probably, be safer that way. On the other hand, to be totally free, just go do what you want, go be where you want to be. And so trying to, for me, it's tuning in to men in this case. Women have their own challenges, but tuning into men and being able to understand where they're coming from, understand the pressures, be able to acknowledge, hey, me too, man, this is hard. This isn't easy. This is gonna, challenge the best in who we are, and to begin to see that this can be, a hero's journey, a warrior's journey. This is, not wimpy staying at home. This is warrior stuff, man. You're taking care of your family by staying at home or going out in a way that, is helpful, and being able to wear a mask, not because you're wimpy and you need to do it because you're not manly, but you're wearing a mask so that you can be a warrior enough to take care of people that maybe need your support and your demonstration of care. So you talk about reframing. I think there's a lot of ways we can engage ourselves, engage each other, because listen, the truth is this is going to go on for a long time. This is what I know about this virus and other similar viruses. The viruses, like I said, been around for 3.5 billion years, almost back to the beginning of the earth. And what they do better than just about anything is, in order to survive, they have to get into other living cells. They're not really alive. They can't do anything on their own. They survive by getting into other living beings. And they're going to keep doing that until either there's a vaccine that, protects the humans. You're not going to get rid of the virus. We got viruses inside our bodies. We've got microorganisms in our guts, everywhere on our bodies, everywhere we go.
Yeah.
So the key here, and I think the opportunity, is to recognize that we need to get in balance with this virus. We need to be able not to go to war with it, or to kill it or to eliminate it from the face. It ain't going to work. We can't have that mentality. That's what's got us into the problems we have, this view that somehow humans have the power to dominate nature and take over, and nature, as they say, bats last, and we better understand that. And in this case, the virus is going to have the last word. So what the opportunity, I think, is that we have a chance now to get honest with ourselves. We're forced to take time to be at home. I've spent a lot of time getting deeply into old wounds I never knew I had, old fears about illness and dying, and my wife dying, my children dying that I've never had to deal with. And I think we've got to get honest with the fact that the way we've been interacting with the planet for thousands of years, maybe 10,000 years, is not sustainable. We can't keep dominating the world. And now we're being given a choice, I believe, that we either change our ways and we become a partner with the community of life, or we become one of the next extinct species. And I think men are being called, and when you call men and women to this kind of hero's journey, like, we have a chance to save the world of humans at least. Yes. And what better thing might we do with this time than put our lives on the line in support of life on the planet, that humans now have a chance to engage in a way that may save us all. Yeah. And if we don't do that, we will, I think, become one of the species that came and went, blew out in a glory, and the viruses will be saying now, sorry guys, I wish we could have worked things out together, because wish you could have stayed longer. And I hope we can stay longer. That's what I want for us.
When I hear you, Jed, I'm thinking about, for the men especially that are listening, that I really want them to clearly hear a couple of important points. That this pandemic and this isolation triggers a lot. And their awareness of what it triggers is so important, so that they know what they are going through. They don't just distract themselves and feel all this anxiety and can't sleep or get aggressive and act it out with partners or kids or drink too much, whatever it is. The importance of knowing the stress that they are going through right now, and that this pandemic, with this isolation physically that they're going through, it produces a number of reactions that everyone is going through. I know we don't like that word in our field, but it's a pandemic. But we're on top of each other. We're at home, we're on top of each other. We have so many unknowns right now. And I often say to people, when you deal with the unknown, what happens to you? What does your body tend to do? And then how do you handle it? And so with all of the unknowns, with, the illnesses and the work situations and the living situations, we are hit with so much stress. And so for men especially, to know what these triggers are that are probably leading these men to have the symptoms that they're having, and that it's normal in a pandemic. The symptom and the stress and the anger isn't the problem, as we all know as therapists. It's how you cope with them.
Right.
And so being on top of each other, all the unknowns, the triggers that, Jed, you hit on that happen to people when they're home and they get sent to their room. We as therapists, all of us talk about triggers, that there's something that's going on in the present that's kind of familiar, but way down deep, it triggers some old feelings that will crop up and get played out in the present. And so you'll feel a certain emotion more intensely than you really understand in the moment. And so triggers are going on for people all over the place. And all of these stressors you want and need to be aware of.
Right.
so that then you have the ultimate control over what it is that you're doing. You're not just so detached and disconnected from yourself that you no longer have the control that you crave when you're afraid. And by what you were saying, Jed, you know, when you know what you're going through and you get what your stress is, that then you can be proactive and really get involved and make decisions that are so productive.
Yeah.
You know, a men's group, you know, you can lead in getting water to people. You know, they have that app, what is it called? Neighborhood. It's a very well-known app. And you see people on there saying, I'm going to be able to volunteer from this time to, you know, come over and do your lawn for you. Or if you're trapped at home, I can run errands and get you stuff. I mean, there's so many things right now that can be done that really empowers someone to feel like they're really not trapped in this pandemic. They really still have that authentic power. It's just we've been thrown into a situation that is so freaking stressful.
Well, it is. And, you know, I was, you know, we were all looking for things you can do at home and trying new things. So my wife decided, why don't we play Scrabble? You know, we've had Scrabble boards like everybody has had, but, you know, we didn't play. I work with words all the time. And so, you know, I've got enough words. It's kind of like, you know, no, all right. So we'll play Scrabble. So we're doing the thing, we distribute the thing, we're getting into the game, and, you know, and it's mildly interesting, but as the game progresses, it's clear the way she plays Scrabble is she looks for every possible way every letter can go, every possible combination to get the best score, the best word, the most interesting. And she's taken for friggin' ever to play her damn tiles. And I'm going, all right. So I, you know, I twiddle my thumbs and I look and I realize I'm starting to get angry, you know, and hey, I'm thinking it's just a game, it's my wife. But I literally get to a point after the third round and she's taken seeming like 10 minutes or 15 minutes to, and I just, when I get my time, this is good enough word, let's get it down, let's keep the game going, man, let's keep it rolling. Hers is, no, let's think about it. And I realized I was literally on the edge of feeling like I'm gonna goddamn take this board and throw it through the window. You know, I was at, and then I had to go, oh, where's that coming from? You know, where's that? And realizing, oh yeah, there's this anger. I don't know what to do. Whereas you said, Mary Gray, we're on top of each other. We're spending more time than we normally would. We're stressed. And so I think what the key is, if there's kind of one key that I think we're all kind of focusing on in our own ways, is that this is a time to be able to go deeper with who we are, with our feelings, what's coming up for us. And it's bringing the depths of everything that we are into our face, because we're with ourselves 24/7. We're just with us, and that includes our feelings, our fears, our past, you know, the traumas we had growing up in our family, the father that left us, the mother that was not as present as we would have liked. All of these things get brought into our awareness. It's stuff we work out as therapists, but in a sense right now, everybody is their own therapist. You know, you can't get to your therapist all the time. You can't afford a therapist all the time. You know, you need to somehow recognize this is a time when this virus and this time in human history is calling on you to step up to yourself, first of all, to step up to being, remember at the beginning, your number one, who am I? What's the authentic me? And feelings are the way we let ourselves get to know who we are.
That's right.
You know, the feelings tell us our anger, our fear, our hurt, our frustration, our shame, our guilt, are telling us something about what is our reality now. Not who we thought we were supposed to be, not who our parents want, but how am I feeling now and who am I now? And how do I deal with the reality of the feelings now so that we can take advantage of this moment to become more ourselves, to connect more with each other in a loving way, to be the person that we know we want to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting too, and I know, Dad, and this is honestly for everyone listening to it, this is beyond just a gift. This is a rare gem that what we're talking about, because especially Mary Grace and David, we've talked about how being kind to ourselves, like, and that's been kind of like a continuous golden thread, and a good parent. And that's, yep. And I was just going to get to that too, is that, being a good parent to ourselves. And, Mary Grace, we talk about that a lot. And it's like, when you recognize yourself, and when you recognize these things that actually come up in you, again, not being afraid of it and not running away and being in the shadows and, kind of, metaphorically being in the corners, right? Or just running into the closet, literally or metaphorically, really, taking that challenge and Jed, as you were saying, that kind of call to action. And I've said to a lot of patients, it's like, and even myself, it's like talking the talk and also walking the walk. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm angry. I'm anxious. I'm frustrated. Damn it. Turn that into a righteous anger, a righteous anxiety, a righteous frustration. And what am I going to do about that, right? Where am I going to, kind of expend this energy in a positive, healthy way that not only can promote my own growth, but promotes the growth around me. And I think that's something too, that it's a gift that keeps on giving. If you keep on kind of expending that health and that safety and that, the love, I mean, I know it sounds a little soapboxy, but, kind of keep on expanding that and expending that energy, it does reach even the people that we're in close parameters with. But even when we do have to go out to the stores and we have to go to work, for some of us, who are on the kind of front lines, it's like that love, that compassion, that empathy, it reaches people. You're being kind to yourself so that you're in turn able to be kind to the person next to you.
And to say, for people who are listening, emotions are absolutely essential. We all have them. And they, again, are not the problem. They alert you that something is wrong. They alert you that you have a need. Anger tells you to pay attention. And it says you're doing too much, or pay attention to this conversation, or something is going on. And the body is like a pressure cooker. So much stuff goes in and it has to come out. And emotions vent that stress, open up that pressure cooker to let the body purge the stress. And so venting emotions is so important. And when you go to vent it, and if you're going to do it with someone, you need to say to them, I just need to vent. Like, I'm not even sure I need anybody's opinion. I just need to vent because this shit's hard. And so emotions are alert systems. They relieve stress from the body, and they help you to identify what your needs are. So especially the men out there who like the detachment thing, it's not helpful. Having emotions are so important for your health. And if you don't cope, I mean, we can talk about sleep trouble, for people who just let everything come in, and then everything gets quiet at night and they can't get to sleep. And I say, good exercise is, I want you to journal write 2 hours before bed as fast as you freaking can. Just say whatever you got to say. Say it as raw as you got to say it. God damn, my freaking boss was a pain in the ass today. Whatever you got to say, just write it quick and get it out before bed, so that when the peace and the quiet comes, those emotions that you haven't dealt with, or those stressors that you haven't dealt with, don't try to talk when you're trying to sleep. So for
totally. I just add one quick thing, that many men that I know also need to do something physical.
Yes.
Some people, I'm a wordy guy. I like words. I talk a lot.
Yeah.
And there's many men and women that, love to talk, just words, write words, talk words. But there's a lot of, guys particularly that words are not their medium of exchange as easily.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you are, even if you're a wordy person, that physical activity, putting, the stress, all those feelings you talk about into action. And that may
Yes.
mean walking. I'm walking every day. I'm walking up hills. Everyone, has some place you can get out to and walk, no matter, how much restricted you are. There is a time, there's a place you can get out and walk, ride your bicycle, something that's physical
Yeah.
that takes that energy and puts it into physical
Yeah.
form
Yeah.
is a good thing to do before you go to bed, and
Yeah.
as a way of both processing and expressing all the feelings that inevitably are getting built
Yes.
up.
Well, and if there is some good as far as what is happening, at least it's happening now where it's not the middle of winter and it's harder to get out. I mean, again, let's try and look at the good things. People are able to get out there. People are starting to garden and to work in their yards and to do home improvements and things that, again, being physical, feeling like you're being productive even though you are at home.
I think that physical piece is so important. How many times have all of us, I know with me, and being a woman, I remember a time when trying to get into shape, a friend of mine had talked me into working with a trainer, and he was big into kickboxing. I fell in love with it, like just kicking the crap out of a bag. And he said to me, I want you really, we're going to get to know each other because you really have some power in your legs. And I said, oh my gosh, I've never loved physical activity so much. And so often I will say to my clients that role of the physical is so important. And I'll say, order a punching bag. If you're one of those really high testosterone guys with a lot of aggression, get the freaking punching bag. Go out there, work out, exert yourself, punch something if you've got to punch something, and then sit down and breathe. And hopefully then maybe write a little bit just to get to know a little bit more what's happening to you.
It's funny you mentioned the punching bag, Mary Grace. Sorry. I've had one on my Amazon shopping wish list for, I don't know, a couple months now.
Right.
I'm
you
gonna pull the trigger on that soon.
You could, oh, I want one. Wait a minute. I would like one. I would do that. Duh.
Yeah, get a discount. Get a
Either
bunch.
heal thyself. Hey, we could order two.
No, everybody on the podcast needs to get one. That's the requirement now.
That's the assignment. We got to get punching bags. And no, I want the kickbox, the one that stands. You fill the bottom with the sand or the water.
Oh yeah. See, I'm thinking of a heavy bag that hangs.
Yeah, that hangs. Yeah. No, I like that one that you can just kick the crap out of. And I remember he had suited up. And he said, I just want to see what happens. Like, I want you to think about something. I'm disclosing here. I want you to think about something that really has pissed you off in your life. And then I want you to just go at me in the way that I've taught you to go at me. And at first I'm like, I don't want to hurt you. Here comes the feminine. Oh my God, but I don't want to hurt you. And this guy is trained in martial arts. And he just started laughing. He goes, trust me, you can't hurt me. And then he said something, and oh my God, it was glorious. I just kicked the shit out of him in any way that I could. I kicked, I hit, I was so, but sparring just 1 minute, I was exhausted.
Sure.
Exhausted. He'd say, we're going to go 1 more minute. And I'd be like, are you freaking nuts? You do know I'm older. But yeah, you know what? On my list, I'm going to get that darn.
On your list.
I am going to get it. David, you have to too.
Oh, I will. Yeah,
all right.
Like I said, it's in my shopping cart. I've just kind of been looking for the right one.
Oh yeah, we have to do a little homework.
So as we get close to being, I know we're close to time here, but let me ask Jed. So you started, like us many years ago in mental health and in therapy, and so what led you into the men's issue field? I just find it interesting that's where you gravitated, because people typically have a preference or specialty.
Yeah.
Well, it started for me when I was getting ready for the birth of our first son. Turned out, didn't know it was a boy, but went through the Lamaze childbirth classes and the breathing exercises, and then as my wife was in labor and I was helping her and coaching her, there was a point where, okay, it's time. And they told me, okay, it's time now, Mr. Diamond, for you to go wait in the waiting room, as she went to the delivery room. And I knew the rules at the time. They didn't allow fathers in the delivery room, so I started out to the waiting room doors, and for some reason I couldn't go through the doors. It just felt like something stopped me, and I felt like there was a voice of my unborn child kind of speaking to me in my mind, saying, I don't want a waiting room father. Your place is here with us. That's how it felt.
Oh, wow.
So I went back in and, pushed through the doors and took my place at the head of the table. And our son was born shortly after, and they handed him to me first. I still remember just holding this beautiful baby and crying, and my wife was crying, and I was glad to, finally get it over with. And I made a vow to him as I held him that first moment of birth, that I would be a different kind of father than my father was able to be for me. And that I would do everything I could to bring about a world where fathers were fully engaged with their children throughout their lives and their families. And so that's really, in a simple way, all the work that I've done in therapy and counseling, working with men and their families, was just a fulfillment of that promise I made to Jamal on November 21st, 1969. So I'm still doing that, and now he's got a son, and I have a daughter and 3 other sons, and so we've got 17 grandchildren. So now it's become part of my legacy, and I feel like this time we're living in is a time for everybody to think clearly about who we are, who am I, what am I here to do? And what does this shared moment in time of this crisis, what's it calling on each of us? What's the message? And, for your viewers, your listeners, I just wanted to offer a gift for any of your listeners. I've got actually 2 gifts that anybody wants to email me at my email, jed@menalive.com, JED, menalive, menalive.com. I'll give you the gift of the meaning of the COVID-19 virus, as I understand it. And then you mentioned the book, The 12 Rules for Good Men.
Yeah.
I have a foundational booklet that goes with that I'll give anybody that would like. I'll give you an e-copy of it. It's called the Good Men Manifesto. So it's really the foundational things, and it's good for men or women. If you really want to get what's the core of what does it mean to be a man, to be male, to be who these male creatures are, this is my understanding. And so if that would be something that any of your viewers, listeners would enjoy, I'd be happy to send them a copy.
Oh, you're so awesome.
Well,
So
I know I will enjoy it. Sure, a lot of listeners will as well.
Good.
And so menalive.com. And if anybody forgets that and wants to message us, of course, we'll give them the information.
And we'll post that on the
we'll post that on the podcast. But I wanted to do one quick thing before we begin closing. And I was thinking about the men that live alone right now. And the stress that they're going through too in this kind of isolation. And Jed, what can we share with them to help them to understand what they might be going through, and what kind of tips can we give them so that they feel support?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing that came to mind is you're not alone.
Right.
that's a cliche, it's kind of we're all in this together kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, you are with you. And there's a sense that there is a presence
Mm-hmm.
that we each have that is not only our true self, our deepest who we are, that we can,
Mm-hmm.
I talk to that person, I listen to that person. It gives me strength when I'm feeling that I'm all alone. And then I add this piece. When my wife challenged me to write for good men, I wanted to know, when did maleness begin? Figured, to be a man, you also have to be a male. And how far back does male and female begin? And I found out, biologically, a billion years of male, female coming together, first on a one cellular level, and then all the way through the animal evolution to, male chimpanzees and male elephants, and right up to, our lineage as Homo sapiens and our parents, our grandparents. So it's always helped me to just go, there is a male lineage that goes all the way back that's there for you. I can feel rested in my ancestors. And if you didn't have a good father that you felt good with, there was somebody back there, even before your father, that was there that you can. So that's kind of the just you and you. But then I know in our community, there's actual ways in which people are reaching out to each other, finding a buddy or a friend or somebody to connect with. If you're willing to talk to somebody, there's a group in our town where you can sign up and just say, all right, I will be willing to be like a big brother or a partner for anybody who's kind of alone, who might need just to have a phone call to somebody that says, hey, I'm thinking about you, how you doing? And if you don't have that in your town, you might start one. You might say, hey, there's undoubtedly other people like you that are in that same boat that you might help out by suggesting that or finding out how to bring that about if it isn't already there.
Yeah. Virtual, meetups, just to also tell them about. There's support groups, there's meetups, don't isolate. If you need more ideas, write to us. We tell our listeners too all the time, if there's anything, that you want us to talk about, definitely message us. So we're here. Listen to the podcast. Do, like Jed, you said earlier, this is a real nice time to go inside and face some of your stuff. And so these books, a great book, 12 Rules to Good Men. And Jed's books are on Google. You can Google them and you'll see all of them, Amazon. But the key is don't isolate. Illusion or isolation and loneliness is an illusion. You don't have to be alone. And you do have to take some action to create that connectedness in your life, especially for those guys who are living by themselves. So, wow, this was such a great podcast. Jed, thank you so much. We would love to have you back in the future.
Right.
And what a tremendous gift you are. Again, he has a bunch of books. It's just so many books that you
got lots of books, and happy, like I said, to get you started with a free gift.
Thank you.
If you email me, I'd just like to connect with you. I really, a lot of times we do these, webinars or webcasts, and you think, well, that's just a guy somewhere out there that's not accessible. And I think you get a sense from me, this is what you're seeing over the shoulder is, my library of books and my way of reaching out to you. So I look forward to hearing from some of you and meeting some of you.
Yes. And thank you. 1,000 thank yous. You are absolutely wonderful. Dave, Matthew.
Yep. Thanks,
awesome
guys.
Thank
you.
And
Thanks
remember,
for coming, Gad. It was nice talking with you.
Facebook, Psyched by MG. We're, podcast, Apple Podcasts now, Pandora, Spotify. And Motor City Hypnotist is David Wright, if you want to talk to him. But thanks, everybody. And we're going to see you next Friday.